Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
We want to thank you for attending tonight's commission meeting. This time we'll call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum. Here. Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Murguia.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening our invocation is being given by Reverend George Kemper of Ebenezer Ministries. And we'd ask that you please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we bow our heads? Lord, we're meeting here today to conduct the matters of business on behalf of this city. Bless and guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach to a successful conclusion. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence. We are of diverse opinion here, but please share your wisdom with us and help us in all concern. We thank you, Heavenly Father. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Pastor Kemper. I'd ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions, Mayor.
Thank you. Our first order of business, we have a proclamation proclaiming Fair Housing Month, which reads as follows. Whereas the Congress of the United States passed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, of which Title VIII declared that the law of the land would now guarantee the rights of equal housing opportunity. And whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, religion, gender, familial status, disability, or national origin. And whereas Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas are committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And today, many realty companies and associations support fair housing laws. And whereas the fair housing groups and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development have, over the years, received thousands of complaints of alleged illegal housing discrimination and found too many that have proved upon investigation to be violations of the fair housing laws. And whereas equal housing opportunity is a condition of life in Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas that can and should be achieved, now therefore I, David Alvey, Mayor, CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Fair Housing Month in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and express the hope that this year's observance will promote fair housing practices throughout Wyandotte County. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we move to our consent agenda. Does any member of the commission, staff, or citizen in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on tonight's consent agenda? You would need to step forward at this time and state your name and city of residency for the record, and we ask that that item be set aside. If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing to consider the redevelopment district plan for Project Area 1 and the Downtown Grocery Redevelopment District. Before we take public comments, I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Good evening. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. Tonight there are two items on the agenda, a public hearing and then an ordinance to approve the redevelopment district plan for the downtown grocery store tax increment financing area. So I'm going to give just a quick kind of overview of some of the financing and where the TIF that you all are voting on tonight, where that kind of fits into the financing plan. So up on the screen here are kind of the large buckets of our project revenues for this downtown grocery store. You can see the grocery store property tax TIF, the increment there, about $900,000. The sales tax revenues, a little less than that. There is a unified government cash contribution that this comes from the sale of the Hilton Garden Inn. We kind of look at this kind of like a revolving loan for downtown and urban core redevelopment. So we're hoping that our full anticipation is that this will be paid back in a timely manner, either from a sale of the grocery store or from proceeds, and then that can go into the next project. So hoping that that just kind of keeps moving and we get some great projects on the line. We're also receiving a loan from LISC, as well as about $1 million, maybe a little over $1 million in new market tax credit. So this will all go to pay for approximately $6 million grocery store. You can see here the project area 1, that yellow box in the top right corner. That's what we're talking about tonight. So previously, a few months ago, the TIF district, that entire block, was approved by the commission, and tonight we're looking at just that block for the specific plan that we're looking at for. So that's just for the grocery store, so that will start kind of the clock on that portion, saving kind of the rest of the block for future development. So a couple items. This is just talking about $913,000. So that is the amount of hard and soft costs that are eligible from this project to be paid back with TIF dollars. So that's the amount of increment that will be gone back to pay for those TIF bonds. So those will be issued, and that starts the clock. It will be 20 years for them to be completely paid back, or faster, of course. So a couple items, just kind of a refresher of where we've been. It feels like I've been up here talking about various aspects of this TIF a number of times, and indeed I have. So you can kind of see the kind of where we've come thus far. So resolution that included the Merck Co-op's management agreement was back in August. We've had an ordinance and public hearing for the TIF district, as well as we've gone through planning commission for the design of the grocery store building. That was actually just, the final design plan was passed just Monday, the 8th. So that's all been gone through, and now we're looking at the final plan tonight, so we'll have the public hearing next, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then you'd only have to see me one more time up here when we come and authorize the issuance of those bonds, which would probably be in about a month. So just a quick overview of what the schedule looks like from here. So tonight, the project plan approval, we'll have the issuance of the bonds here in about a month. New market tax credit closing will be roughly in July, and we're also looking at breaking ground in July, and that will set us up nicely for a store to open in spring of 2020, so just about a year exactly from now. So I just also want to mention that Jason Lovell, the finance director of the Merck Co-op, is here if you have any Merck-specific questions, and I think I will move to the side and we can potentially go for the public hearing, and then I will be here to stand for any questions after that.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll now open the public hearing. If there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this item, if so, please step to the podium, give us your name and city of residency for the record. You will be given 3 minutes to state your comments.
Hello, my name is Justine Underwood-Jones. I reside at 431 Ann Avenue. I am the president of the Strawberry Hill Neighborhood Association, and we are very excited to welcome the Merck into our community. I just want to say that we've been very impressed with how the Merck has gone out of their way to engage with all of our neighborhoods, all of the community organizations, hosting a number of listening sessions. I want to say that this project in particular with these partners for the community has really raised the bar. When they have listening sessions, they host them on Saturday afternoons. They come to our groups and they've spoken at the Strawberry Hill Neighborhood Association. I know they've spoken at First Baptist Church with Turtle Hill. They've co-hosted a number of these with the neighborhood organizations. They host their listening sessions at 7 p.m. to make sure that folks can come. And they've gone way out of their way because they know that they have an image that they're not affordable, and they've worked really hard to address those concerns to make sure that everybody feels like they're able to be a member and that they know they don't have to be a member to shop there, that there's going to be affordable groceries, that they're filling a much needed fresh produce gap in the downtown areas, and we're very excited to welcome them into our communities. I think that we can all learn as neighborhood groups and as the UG that this type of community engagement goes so far to bringing people on board with your projects. They're not just trying to drop a store in the middle of our community and say, there you go. They want to be a part of the community, and we value that above most any other concerns. They care about us, they're listening to us, and if there are issues, we know that we'll be able to address that with them. And that's something that we can't ask from other partners, especially grocery stores that are for profit. So
You have 1 minute to complete your comments.
Oh, I'm done. I just want to say I'm really excited about this. So thank you guys, thank you Catherine, thank you everyone who worked on this project and everything that you've done. It's all above my head what you do, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Greg Kendall. I'm president of the Wyandotte Economic Development Council here in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm here in support of the redevelopment district and the grocery store project, as we believe this will improve access to healthy food while also driving new sales taxes and driving new development in the downtown. Further, we believe the financing structure adequately protects the unified government from risk while also serving a public need. We also support this project in part because this grocery store plans to stock products made in Wyandotte County on their shelves and hire local residents. We ask that you support this project as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in favor, is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, if there are no further comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ordinance as submitted.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Gilbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
McGeough.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Next, we move to the administrator's agenda. The two items relate to a bond sale held earlier today. Our Deputy Chief Financial Officer is here to make a short presentation regarding the sale. Ms. Johnsher, if you'd like to share the results of the temp note sale first.
Yes, good evening. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation tonight. However, you should have received a recommendation letter from our municipal advisors, Baker Tilly. If you're wondering who Baker Tilly is, our municipal advisor has been Springstead. Earlier this year, they joined forces with Baker Tilly and are now operating under the name Baker Tilly. So we still have the same people helping us with our bond sale, just under a different name. So as I said, we held the bond and temporary note sale today. The results, again, were below market estimates. The temp note estimates were 2.26%. We had a principal amount of 7.4% and the actual rate, 7.4 million, and the actual rate came in at 1.74%. And that's a maturity through March of 2020. On the bonds, Series 2019B, we estimated 2.17%, and that's with a maturity through August of 2027. The actual rate was 1.86%. The objective of the bond financing was to reduce future interest costs, and this refinancing will result in interest cost savings of about $630,000. So the two items for commission approval tonight, the first one is a resolution authorizing the sale of general obligation temporary notes, and item number 2 is an ordinance and a resolution authorizing the sale of general obligation and refunding bonds.
Thank you. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval on both items.
We need separate, I believe. Yes, so this is item number 1, sale of temp notes, series 2019-11.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
I entertain a motion for item number 2, the sale of city general obligation refunding bonds, series 2019-B.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the portion of our regular meeting, and I adjourn us in that capacity, and now call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside the one item on the Land Bank consent agenda? Commissioner Bynum? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mayor, thank you. I would like to set aside this item. I think we have some folks in the community that might want to speak to it.
Okay, the item is set aside. All right. Mr. Slaughter?
Good evening. Okay, we'll just go through the presentation real quick, and then we'll let the members come up and ask questions. A little history of where we were, what led us to where we are tonight. Back in November, we requested a hold for 180 days to go through some new strategies. The Northeast Master Plan was on the verge of being approved. And with the recommendations from the plan, we thought from the land bank perspective, we wanted to sit there and revisit and make sure that we're doing the right thing for the community. A lot of the recommendations in the plan were for housing, for infill development. A lot of the things that we present to you on a regular basis are yard extensions and property acquisitions. So we wanted to spend some time internally and come up with some strategies. And unfortunately, we just didn't meet that deadline. So at Monday's standing committee, we asked for, or I'm sorry, last Monday's standing committee, we asked for an extension, and that's what's before you tonight. I will say we have been making some progress, and we just didn't feel it was right to come with some ideas that weren't 100% vetted. And sometimes when you look at core issues, more questions pop up, which lead to more time and more research to find and come with the right explanation. So again, it is a 120-day extension. All applications are still being processed through our department. They are just basically being sent a letter saying they're on hold until we get to the point where we can make the recommendations to the commission. So that's the ask for tonight.
Thank you. I'd ask if there's anyone in support of this resolution. Seeing none, anyone in opposition who would like to address? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Chester Owens. I live at 1150 Washington Boulevard. I have a prepared statement, but I know I'll have, 3 minutes? It's 6 minutes long, so I would like to have permission to do 6 minutes, no longer than 6 minutes.
So moved.
Roll call?
Roll call, Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum. Burrows. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
McGee.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
The podium is yours.
Mayor, Alvey, Commissioners, Administrator. No chain is stronger than its weakest link. This is the heading of a document that I sent to every public official in Kansas City, Kansas in September of 2017. I'm passing this document to you again tonight and hope that you will take the time to read it or read it again. I speak to you as one who has sat for 8 years where you are sitting. The major difference is that as a city council person, we all had to run at large. And maybe we had to listen more closely to the concerns of all of the citizens in Kansas City, Kansas. I clearly understand the tough decisions that you have to make. I think that is appalling and disgusting that you are again delaying the moratorium on the vacant lots. I want to talk specifically about 2 of the vacant lots that are on this list, 1137 and 1139 Everett. I want to emphasize that I am not speaking for the neighborhood group to which I belong, but I'm a resident of the area in which these vacant lots are located. This block at one time had 7 vacant houses. 5 of them are now occupied and the other 2 are being worked on. The 2 lots were the scourge of this neighborhood. It appeared sometimes that every type of vermin would come there and use it as a housing place. It got so bad until the lady who lived next door, was one of our active members, moved to Kansas City, Missouri. After complaining about this situation, the neighborhood group approached the commission at that time, Mark Mitchell, and asked if he would secure permission for us to do a community garden, and he did. We had to remove the stumps and level the lots. This was all done without the assistance of the UG. We interacted with Youth Bill for 2 summers on this venture, and they proved to be beneficial for us and them during this period. They installed a fence around the garden, and they helped plant the seeds there. And for many of them, this is the first time they'd ever seen anything grow. An unknown donor donated a picnic table and installed it at the rear of our garden. At the garden open, many public officials, including the mayor, attended, along with many community policing officers. We purchased all of the necessary garden tools ourselves, and a tiller was donated by a person. The produce from this garden is given first to the members of our neighborhood group and then to residents in the neighborhood. We do not sell anything. Since we had not only taken care of these vacant lots and provided assistance to residents, we wanted to acquire these lots before this growing season. We went through the process of having these lots put in a tax sale. Not only were we disappointed at the first moratorium, but to extend the moratorium for an additional period not only is frustrating, but downright disgusting. This action adds fuel to the fire, and we cannot separate this issue because the vast majority of vacant lots are in the northeast area. From the master's plan, I presented my views in these documents, which I referred to at the beginning of the comments. Many persons who live and work, and I want to put emphasis on live and work hard daily in the neighborhoods to maintain a quality of life, consider the master's plan as one of the greatest hoaxes that has ever been perpetrated on this area. To devise a plan and not include any funding, budget funding specifically for its implementation is incomprehensible to me. In talking to members of other neighborhood groups, and not just in the northeast area, and persons who are not members of neighborhood groups who live, I put emphasis again, live and work to maintain a quality of life, it appears that their views no longer matter. I hope that you will take time to read the document. No chain is stronger than its weakest link. These comments represent the views of a large segment of the residents where I live, who now feel that they are no longer matter, and their views are not only not heard, but are not respected and have no meaning. Many of us are elderly, and when you mistreat the elderly, nothing good will come out in the long run. I want to conclude my remarks with a quote from No Chain and a quote by an unknown person. First, my quote from No Chain. My comments are not politically motivated, they are not threatening, and they are not race-based. Hopefully, as we move along, we will see things only as what is right and what is wrong. Now the quote, and I do a lot of reading. This specific quote jumped out at me about a month ago. The quote goes like this: "It is sometimes stated that silence is golden, but there comes a time when speech is golden. Silence is criminal, and I'm not going to be a criminal anymore." Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, County Administrator, staff, and audience. My name is Elnora Jefferson. The ask. My ask tonight is to not approve the 100-day moratorium without a two-way information session where what has been done can be discovered and what will be done can be conveyed and vetted. And why? Well, there are a number of reasons. One reason is that this informational session was asked and it was granted. It was very well implemented. Mr. Slaughter did a great job in going out and talking with all of the neighborhood groups. They were able to listen and learn and felt comfortable with the 100-day moratorium. Questions that I've received about the 120 days, I have no answers because I have no information, because it has not been shared. On the heels of the Northeast Area Master Plan, where citizen input was required in order for the master plan to be deemed an official document, at least 2, if not more, public notices were mailed, and extra effort was extended to involve the everyday citizen. The Northeast Area Master Plan has many components: the 4 themes, the grocery store, rich history, the clinic, and neighborhood projects all depend upon land. How can a land bank policy be established without the input of the very same people whose voices were heard to determine the master plan? Land use is a big component of the plan. The entrepreneurial push. We have a couple of entrepreneurs here. You may know them. When land bank policies are made in a vacuum What entrepreneurial projects are lost or sacrificed? And we've had those just because we just don't know. We don't have that communication. We've had people who have invested money in businesses and they've lost that because the land was sold out from underneath them. The Stormwater Steering Committee will convene tomorrow. Resident and neighborhood representatives were invited to attend. The Chamber has established a subcommittee that has already met with Public Works and others to help determine the financial algorithm that would be used to access the fee.
Ms. Jefferson, you have 1 minute remaining.
Wow, okay. The KCK Zoning Rewrite Committee is another. I've listed several here. All to say that this is a precedent. This is not anything that's new. So for this full body commission to not approve the 100-day moratorium is not something that's out of the box. I would address one thing. I would say, and I heard Mr. Slaughter say this, and I know that this is the intent of everyone who's here, is do the right thing for the community. I think that's noble and that sounds good. But the real thing is, the real paradigm should be, number one, how do you know? And the real paradigm should be, we do it together. And that's what happens when we have that two-way dialogue. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jefferson. Yes, sir.
Thank you for this space to speak with you all. One of the...
Sorry, your name and your city of residency?
Terrell Dyer. And what else did you need?
Your city of residency?
Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you. Me and my cousin were actually one of the entrepreneurs that she's referring to. And this hold on the land is actually kind of holding us back on doing something productive for the community that we're looking to start initiating. That's kind of been put on hold because of the things we're trying to do with the land that's in conjunction, is working with the Northeast Master Plan, trying to bring a community-based food system here to our community. And we feel like it will be it's very vital as far as the condition in which our community in, health-wise, as well as grocery store-wise, and growing for fresh produce to get a healthier community as well. So land is very valuable. I understand the restrictions of the hold on some standpoints, but as far as when people of the community and organizations of the community come before you all in the land bank with great ideas to start moving this community forward, especially Northeast Place, because a lot of things have been done in that place for about 30 years. And now we got people in here that's trying to put things forward, and this land hold is slowing that down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Slaughter? Oh, I'm sorry.
Justine Underwood Jones, Kansas City, Kansas. Forgive me, as a layperson, I wondered if it would be possible to request. I know a lot of people came to oppose the moratorium, and I didn't know if the Board of Commissioners, what the process was for asking people who didn't want to stand up and speak, if they could stand to be counted. So I just wanted to submit that request if that's something that you guys would be willing to consider tonight.
Sure, if you're in opposition to the delay, just raise your hand. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Slaughter?
Well, I'll start by saying I appreciate the comments that were made tonight. Again, I think our position is going to be is we want to roll out suggestions and policy that are best not only for the community, but for ourselves also in the land bank. As far as reaching out, you know, that I probably felt that since we weren't at a conclusion or we were treading water maybe, that was probably a message that did need to go out, and I can improve on that by keeping, especially the advisory board, up to date with the progress. But sometimes, again, it just felt like just telling them over and over that we're still working on it just maybe seemed a little redundant and stuff.
So, Mr. Slaughter, if you would explain, so if always there's a trade-off. I mean, if we were to not go ahead with the moratorium, there would be ramifications. If we do go forward, there are other ramifications. Just give us an idea of what was the purpose of the original moratorium, and are those factors still in play?
Well, with the momentum that the master plan was getting, I felt we had an increase of speculative applications. And the work that you guys put into it, staff put into it, to come up with recommendations of how to improve the Northeast area, which again includes housing, which includes other amenities, I thought that bringing such applications on a routine basis, which had been on par, maybe was not the best course of action. So that's why back in the fall, we asked for this moratorium. It's something that I didn't want to sit there and have to do and create all by myself, so that's why other members of staff, other departments are involved. And I guess from a scheduling standpoint, that's been somewhat in the delay. But I think we're making some progress. I understand that some of the recommendations we make may not be 100% popular, but I think we want to at least put ourselves in a position that when it comes to development or when it comes to improving the Northeast, we feel we're taking the best course of action.
So to be clear, one of the primary reasons for having the moratorium in the first place is you perceived that there was, or we did, that there was an increase in people who were looking to have the land, that land conveyed to them from the land bank simply because they thought the prices would go up and they would be able to resell and make a profit. And not the same as those who would come in and build immediately, but there are those who would just try and tie up the property in anticipation of development later.
Yeah, and you know, in looking at the requests that we have on hold, I would say half of them, again, are just yard extensions. Other are property acquisitions, and some of those are gardens and some of the community gardens that were spoke about tonight. And I think there's still places for those, but I think as a whole, I think we would want to be strategic in where some of those were and where maybe we didn't want to have some of those. Again, not referring to anything that was spoken to tonight, but instead of just having those applications come in and brought before you, I think we need to have an internal vetting process that at least we're all on the same page to sit there and tell an applicant, yes, we think this is a good plan, or no, maybe we want to hold off for something else.
Would you, I don't know if the commission would agree, but it's possible that, in fact, with the advent of the Northeast Master Plan, this is actually spurring interest in the Northeast that would not have been there before, and in a way that speculation shows that there is more investment ready to come, partly as we're just trying to identify where those areas, how that happens. Is that possible?
I would say so, yes.
Right. But at the same time, the trade-off on that is we have individuals who are ready to bring something real, and we're delaying them, and that also is a problem. So I would suggest that maybe if I don't know what could be done in terms of the ordinance, but I'm going to I'll shut up and let others. Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. I think other commissioners may have a good suggestion to make. I just wanted to clarify what I'm hearing and maybe reiterate it, because I'm hearing that for round 2 of a moratorium, unlike our efforts with the master plan process, we didn't do a good job of communicating with our neighborhoods and our community. And secondarily, this is really critical and important to me. We have within the Northeast area people who are ready right now to bring projects forward, and some of those projects include land bank land, and it's almost like we're stepping on our own toes by protecting the whole community from speculation. We're stopping real organic interest, which is exactly what we wanted to have happen with our Northeast Master Plan. So that, to me, is a conundrum. It sounds like maybe our fearless spreadsheet data man might have a suggestion. Am I wrong? All right, well, I would love to hear it. I would like a way forward.
Commissioner Johnson?
I think by Commissioner Bynum's reference, she was not talking about me as the data man. I wanted to get clarification, particularly from Mr. Owens, the vacant lots that you spoke of, are they already owned, or are there additional properties that you're trying to acquire? I just want to make sure I understand that properly.
No, they're not owned. They're owned by, I guess, UG. We had them put in the tax sale. As we stated, Commissioner Mark Mitchell assisted us, and we were just trying to make our neighborhood better.
Right.
And we had the garden there since 2009. We've done this for 11 years. And we had set a target to try and get this growing season where if we were successful, we'd like to own those lots.
Okay.
We own already 4 lots in that block that we purchased over the years.
So you're looking for an additional 2 lots is what you're suggesting?
Those additional 2 lots, since we've used that, and we feel that we have really provided, I guess, assistance to the UG. And we feel that we deserve the right, and don't need to wait any longer.
Right.
That's what really is kind of getting us.
Right. Thank you. And I'm going to try to be brief. I think, as it relates to the policy that we're trying to set, what I'm more concerned about is not necessarily the letter of the policy, but it's the spirit of the policy, the way in which we're doing this. I thought that there was a little bit of wiggle room that if there were projects that were underway that we knew that kind of spoke to the need and to the intent of the Northeast Master Plan, that we could kind of talk through those and work those through the standing committee on a as needed basis. And it doesn't seem that is the case, and maybe I just misinterpreted it. But I do think, particularly to what I heard from Mrs. Jefferson and even Mr. Dyer, that there needs to be an inclusive process with the community, specifically because that was the way that we rolled out the master plan in its infancy. We had a number of groups, focus groups, community groups, and it was a very inclusive process. So as we are moving forward with this, and I do understand, I want to make sure I say this, I do understand why we're doing this, but it is the spirit in which, and it's the message that it's sending to the community. We need to be very mindful of that, because the things that were problems before we started the master plan are still problems right now. And so I think there needs to be a very inclusive process. And then if there are projects that are worthy, that speak to the master plan, why can't we take a look at those right now? And vet those on a one-to-one basis. So those are my comments. I'll acquiesce my time.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner McKiernan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Commissioner Bynum actually, has kind of crystallized what I was thinking as I was hearing this, that in our attempt to protect our ability to realize the plan, we're standing in the way of realizing the plan at the moment. And it occurs to me that I think maybe our best course of action to go forward would be to take this extension of the moratorium effectively back to committee, but to say that before it comes back to committee, that we have a public engagement, at which time we engage those people who are here in the Northeast area, and that we effectively evaluate all of the proposals for land use, and if there are some that are non-speculative, that are going to lead to the realization of real projects right now that are in the spirit and the intent of the master plan, that the Land Bank Advisory Committee could suggest that we approve those now, effectively ignoring the moratorium for those projects that can be realized. And if there's a need after this meeting, if there's a need to extend the broad moratorium to hedge speculation and enhance the realization of the entire plan, that we can go ahead and do that at that time, but after having taken out projects that are capable of being realized right now. So I guess my motion would be that this be sent back to Neighborhood and Community Development Committee for consideration of extending the moratorium, but that before it comes back to committee, we have a community engagement process during which time we can evaluate whether or not there are proposals for land bank properties that could help realize the master plan and be executed at this time. Then those could be brought forward as recommendations from the Land Bank Advisory Committee for action by the committee, and then the moratorium could be extended beyond that.
That's a good, long motion.
Yeah, it is.
Second.
We have a second. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I have wholeheartedly seconded Commissioner McKiernan's, but I want to say that I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that this moratorium was in any way some method to undermine the momentum that's going on in the Northeast area. I appreciate Mr. Owens' comments. One of the things that I know was hardest when I came in is that there was the evidence of so much mistrust for what had been or what hadn't been, the neglect. That is definitely not what we're doing here. As for the immediacy of some projects, I'm not going to name it. It was my understanding, because I weighed in on it, that some latitude had already been granted to deal with a couple of lots, and I won't name them. So I want people to know that that had been taken into account. The second thing is, this moratorium, the ask, was no different than the first one when it came through some months ago. And there was a lot of participation and involvement at the standing committee when it was first presented. And at that time, the neighborhoods asked for additional time for the committee to look at it, and that was granted. So nothing has really changed from the first time. However, I can appreciate that to make sure the community is clear again on what we're trying to do here, I would second Commissioner McKiernan's motion, but I don't want anyone to leave here thinking this is an undermining effort or different than what we had done before. If it takes 120 days right now to make sure we don't have speculators coming in, then we need to take the time to do that so that we're thoughtful and strategic, which was the goal of the master plan in the first place, so that when businesses come in, and I know they will, we know they fit in and they look right for us, so it's no longer a neglected area. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Can you hear me? I'm just curious, just wanting to know what are the things that are slowing down the process or that are making this process go a little longer than what was originally intended?
I would think scheduling has been a big part of it. I think from my perspective, the loss of Mr. Brockman has increased my workload. So, you know, those are probably the two main factors.
I want to make sure that I address the two outstanding issues that I heard, one from Mr. Owens and one from Mr. Dyer. Both of those items that they're working on speak to the spirit of the master plan. And because particularly Strugglers Hill already has a community garden. It's not like they're wanting to start one. They're wanting to expand something that is already there. So I don't know why we can't take a look at that. I've already heard about Mr. Dyer. I think Commissioner Bynum has been working with you and working on that project as well, which is another thing that is within the spirit of the master plan. So in other words, this is not a yard extension, and this is not some speculator. This is something, these are two projects that are within the context of the master plan. I don't know why we can't work with these two groups to see about getting those things done now. Is there a reason why we need to hold them up?
The reason for that was there was some discussion that the location they want to have their project at maybe wasn't going to be in the best interest for the UG to sell, and we were going to look at leasing the property to them. That lease policy was, we didn't present it on Monday. We were told not to present it, and that was going to be brought back with the rest of the whole policy recommendations. So that's been the decision making on that.
Okay. Commissioner Philbrook.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the other commissioners that sometimes we create roadblocks for ourselves and for our community with best intentions. Although I understand that this is going to make more work for us, Don't anybody throw darts at me, please. I believe that we're going to have to start looking at these projects individually as they come forward while we're creating the illustrious master plan.
Policy.
Huh.
For land bank.
Okay, that too. But it's part of it, the policy that goes along with the master plan.
That's right.
So it's all policy, it all falls in. Without having the land bank information that falls in with it, the master plan doesn't work. Not the way they want it to. Is that correct? Okay. So, sorry for misspeaking. Thank you for telling me that. But I would really like to see that we do take the extra effort to work with these folks individually and talk through it with the community on individuals, with individuals that are coming through wanting to invest in our community. I know that's a lot of work, making it individual instead of an overall plan that we can just follow with everybody. But right now, we don't have it, so that's what I think.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. For those of you that are present and would like to be engaged in this dialogue that would occur prior to our next neighborhood and community development meeting, have you ever been in a group of people where you're all trying to land on what day can we meet? That can be really daunting. So you need to understand that it's possible. First of all, I'd like to just see a raise of hands from you if you want to participate in that meeting. Because Mr. Slaughter needs your contact information before you leave. And then we're going to be dealing with organizing 6, 7, and 8 people into a time that fits most schedules, and it won't be easy. So I think we all need to understand and recognize some of you may not make it to whatever time and date is landed on, but we need to make a good faith effort to work with you. So make sure that Mr. Slaughter has a way to communicate with you, and we will ask him to communicate that with us as well so that we can come and participate as well. And the second item is the next Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee then would be scheduled for what date, do you know?
April 29th.
So we have a very short time frame in which to hold this meeting in order to bring this back to the next Neighborhood Standing Committee meeting. And number 3, I have been working with Mr. Dyer and Mr. Marks on the proposal for the land bank parcels they wanted, and we had a lease concept mutually agreed upon by what we thought was all parties. And so I'm going to request that we see that again at the April 29 meeting so that that committee can consider that. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yes, I got a little confused. I was trying to write and listen to the motion. If the motion was to send the hold back to the land bank for consideration, there could be a gap so there could be a gap when there's not a moratorium. So I just want to make sure.
I think it's a short term. I don't see that that's an issue.
Okay. I just wanted the board to understand there could be that gap if it doesn't come back at the right time.
Commissioner Johnson?
I don't want to complicate it, but I do want to make sure the Struggler's Hill is included in that that process as well, so that we can get that. There's no reason why we should hold them up if these properties are adjacent to the properties that they already are that are in that area that fulfill the purpose of the master plan. So I just want to make sure that that's being stated. Doug, it sounds like he might need some help over there. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but it sounds like you're doing the best you can. I do want to appreciate the work that you've been doing, Chris. You're doing the best job that you can get done, and I just want to make sure that we give you the kind of support that you need to make sure that all of these demands that we are making are met.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. Just as far as any process that would, like you said, temporarily lift the current hold, you're taking land bank applications now.
Yeah, we haven't stopped taking applications. They've just been communicated back to that
And
it's on hold.
for this duration of time between now and April 29, nothing would be processed anyway, correct? So
Well,
I'm
well, I
not
think to
seeing
Ms. Lawson's point, by the time the 29th hit, the original 180 days would probably have expired.
correct, but no
So
action.
I can bring the 50 so plus applications and put them on the agenda for the 29th if that's what, this is what the board wants.
Commissioner Walters?
We have a motion and a second. I'd like to call the question.
We have a motion and a second. Well, let's have a roll call on the motion to bring the question.
Roll call. Johnson?
No.
Kane?
Aye.
Markley?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Philbrick?
I'm still confused on what the heck I'm voting on. This is like, I'm sorry. You know, no, I understand, but no, since I don't understand.
Bynum?
Aye.
Burrows?
No.
Townsend?
Aye.
McKiernan?
Aye.
Regia?
Aye.
The vote is 7-3. Motion carries.
So we have a motion and a second. If you would recount the motion.
Good luck. I think,
Angela?
Oh.
shouldn't you have Commissioner McKiernan?
Well, I think she has to because she has to record.
It's 7-3.
No, the original
Oh, to take-
motion.
Okay.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Wow.
Oh, McKiernan? I'm not following. Okay.
Motion that was made?
Roll call on the motion made by Commissioner McKiernan. Johnson?
No, he wants the motion stated. Did you record the motion, or do we need to play it back?
I can read part of what I wrote down.
Okay.
The motion was to send the item back to Neighborhood and Community Development for consideration to extend the moratorium and for the community to engage and evaluate the proposals that are in the land bank. Let me see, property. Let me see, I'm trying to read my notes. Oh, to ensure that the proposals are in conformance with the master plan, and then to bring this back to the land bank to place a possible moratorium.
Is that accurate?
But yeah, we do, but I think there's a way simpler motion here. I really do, that avoids the lapse, that avoids everything. Yeah. And so I think, and I think Mr. Slaughter may have brought this up, I think that if the hold stays in place and we just systematically engage and consider, as Commissioner Townsend said earlier, we have the possibility the committee has the authority to override the hold for any project that would come forward that we think is in the spirit and the intent of realizing the master plan. So we could leave the hold in place and then request that Mr. Slaughter engage with the community to identify those projects or those applications that, if realized, would contribute to the attainment of the master plan.
So can do we need a new motion? I mean,
and
again, I'm
spitballing this out loud here at the moment because if we decide that this is a reasonable course of action, we can withdraw an original motion and restate this.
We've already had a vote to vote on the original motion. We can't have a new motion until we vote on the first motion.
Right, I think.
So let's, good, Commissioner McGee.
Thank you. I think this is way easier. Hopefully, I can explain it better. So,
But we have a call for the question. We can't have a new
I thought we
motion.
already voted.
No, we voted on the call to question to bring a vote on the original motion.
Okay, let's
So
vote.
let's take a vote on the original motion.
Let's vote.
the first motion.
Let's do it.
Have a public meeting, get projects, bring it all back.
Let's vote.
Roll call, please.
Just to clarify, the original motion is the one we are voting on that stands to send it back, engage the public, identify projects, bring those back along with a request to extend the hold at that time.
That's the motion.
Roll call.
Sounds better. Okay. I'm the first vote, so I got to get clarity.
Roll call, Johnson?
Aye.
Kane? Aye. Markley?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Philbrook?
Aye.
Bynum?
Aye.
Burrows?
Aye.
Townsend?
Aye.
McKiernan?
Aye.
Murguia?
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
Great.
Very good. Thank you all.
Mayor, I
Meeting?
just want to make sure that the residents understand we're engaging that meeting, the moratorium hold, as well as any projects that might fit within what the master plan is. Does everybody understand that? No, there's somebody shaking their head no. So I'll give it a shot. So there is a moratorium on this area. We're entertaining a moratorium on this area. We're not releasing any property. But what we're saying is we're still willing as a committee, as a standing committee that hears this, to hear your projects at the same time. And that committee has the authority to override that moratorium. So at that meeting, as a committee member of that meeting, I would tell you that I would expect to hear about the moratorium, but at the same time, hear about your projects. And if we decide that your projects fit within what the master plan is, and it's what the community wants to see happen, we have the authority to move ahead with that at that meeting. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We are adjourned.
Thank you for watching. Remember, you can view meeting agendas and minutes online at wicokck.org. Or, to confirm meeting dates and times, you can also call the Unified Government Clerk's Office at 913-573-5260.